Good morning. Today we are working on CO45. I can use a number line to identify solutions to an inequality. So we're still working with those inequalities that we started yesterday. We're adding on a little bit more to what we talked about yesterday. So the biggest difference, and the one that affects your solution between inequalities and equations, is that because an inequality describes a range of solutions, we need to show all the values within that range. So we know it can be more than one answer, so we need to show which answers it can be. How might we do that with the following inequality statements? So if we look at n is greater than 8, and n is greater than or equal to 12, we are going to be using our open circle versus closed circle to show what those would include. So an open circle is a circle that's not filled in. It means not equal. So it cannot be the number. It can't be the number. That is different than a closed circle that's going to be filled in. So a closed circle means it can be equal to it. It can be the number. So when we are looking at our inequality statement, n is greater than 8, it means it can't be 8. It has to be bigger than 8. So that would be the open circle. When we have greater than or equal to 12, it can be equal, so it would be that closed circle. It can be 12 or it can be more than 12. So let's see how we use these circles. The first thing we're going to do, step 1, is we draw a number line. Now we don't need to put all the numbers on the line because that's just way too much information. We're just going to draw our line and we're going to put the mark there and our number that we're working with in the inequality statement. So that one has an 8, this one has a 12. So that's our first step. Our second step is to draw the circle. Now this is where we have to figure out, do we want it to be an open circle or a closed circle? So if we look at this greater than, it cannot be equal to 8. It has to be bigger than 8. So we're going to draw an open circle above it. For the n is greater than or equal to 12, it can be a 12. So we're going to color that circle in. So if it has that equal sign underneath the less than or greater than, we fill the circle in. If it does not, it can't be equal to it, we leave it open. Now we have our third step. The third step is to draw the arrow. Now the arrow is telling us what numbers can be covered in this inequality statement. So if our numbers have to be bigger than 8, if we have 8 on the number line here, any numbers bigger than 8 are going this direction. And n is greater than or equal to 12. Any numbers bigger than 12 is going to the right. So when we look at it this way, an easy way to think about it is if it is greater than, my little arrow looks like a little arrow, that open mouth looks like an arrow, my arrow points that same direction. So this only works if you have the n on the left, which is what we will only be working with in Math 6, with that n being on the left-hand side of the inequality statement. It can be flipped, but we're not messing with that this year. So this year we can look and say, okay, greater than points to the right, so my arrow points to the right, because all of my numbers have to be bigger than 8, bigger than 12, so I'm pointing in that direction. So let's graph some of these inequalities on a number line. I'm going to scroll up. But remember your 3 steps. So when we draw our inequalities, we are following our 3 steps. First one is draw your number line. So I have n is less than 85. So I'm going to put 85 on my number line. Second step, draw a circle. Do I want it to be an open circle or a closed circle? I do not see that equal sign here. It is just less than, so that means I leave it an open circle. Because it's just less than, it stays open. Last step, number 3 step, third step, is to draw my arrow. I want it to be less than 85, so I want my arrow to go to the left on the number line for it to be less than 85. Any number that's smaller than 85 will work. If I look at my next one, n is greater than or equal to 21. So I'm going to draw my number line, that's step 1. I'm going to label it with my number, 21. Now I have to draw my circle and decide is it an open circle or a closed circle. I can see it's a greater than or equal to. Since it has that equal to, I fill in my circle. Last step, draw my arrow. Greater than points to the right. It is all the numbers bigger than 21. So my arrow is going to go to the right. So the biggest thing here is to remember your 3 steps and to remember that if it is not equal, if it's just less than or greater than, it's open. If it is also equal to that number, you fill the circle in. If one of our numbers has that negative sign there, when you're drawing that number line, you have to remember to put the negative on your number. That is important because 40 is very different than negative 40. When you get down to the bottom, let me scroll up. When we get down to the bottom, it says write each situation as an inequality statement and then graph it. So you're going to look back at the table we made in yesterday's objective, think about which terms mean what inequality, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and you're going to make your inequality statement like we did in our last objective, and then you're going to add on what we were doing today, graph your objective. So if we look at our first one, your goal is to take at least 10,000 steps each day. Okay, so we know our number is going to be related to that 10,000 steps. We need to decide how is it related to it. My keywords are at least. So if my goal is to take at least, I'm going to look back at my objective, my table from yesterday's objective, and I'm going to find at least. At least falls under the greater than or equal to. So that's just what we did with yesterday's homework. Now I'm going to look at that inequality statement and I'm going to graph it. So the first thing I do is I write my inequality statement, then I do my 3 steps to graph it. So my number's 10,000, so I make my number line with 10,000 on it. Second step, draw my circle. It is greater than or equal to, so I need to fill in my circle. Last step is to draw my arrow. Greater than points to the right. All of my numbers need to be bigger than that 10,000, so my arrow goes to the right. So you need to have both parts to this solution. You need to have your inequality statement and you need to have your number line. So you need to graph it on that number line. So you're going to finish all of the rest of the problems on this page. When you are done, you can watch the video for the math packet number 7. Remember, that is due next week, Tuesday. So we'll be working on that packet number 7. And if you have any past due Khan Academy assignments, get those finished by Thursday, by tomorrow. Make sure you give me a post-it or send me an email telling me to look back on your Khan Academy so I can update your grade. If you have any questions, check with each other, check with your teacher, See if you can answer it. If you can't, make sure you ask me tomorrow when we go over our answering. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.